We will have several panels, as I told you, and we are about to start with the first session and with our first panels that are here. And it's about to be only women on the stage this morning. So let's meet the next gen origin women leaders that will introduce you to the evolving landscape of sustainability and show you how this is a world of opportunities, resilience, and reinvention. So here on the stage, I would like you to give a big round of applause to Lorena Perdomo, who is a field technician and gender referent of Café Score in Honduras. Also, Nakalagwa Faima, did I say that correctly, I hope, General Manager of MT Algon Agroforestry Communities in Uganda. And Michel Jarquin, our Field Technician and Copper of Sopexa in Nicaragua. And here is their moderator. This is Sarah Charles, who works for the International Trade Center and specifically its Alliances for Action Sustainable Agribusiness Program. And she's also a co-author of the ITC Coffee Guide, the 4th edition. Ladies, welcome. The stage is yours. A big round of applause for all of them.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to SCTA for enabling my participation and our 3 speakers' participation, and in general for the Next Gen initiative, because we do really need to work on youth inclusion in the coffee sector. Women in coffee is also a topic that's close to my heart, so I'm really pleased to see women representation today in this panel, and looking at the participation in general in this forum, I think it's safe to say that it's something that we need more of, with a ballpark figure around 85% of male attendance at this forum, I would say. So I think that we need to start recognizing that we need women in coffee at producer level, great, in terms of leading sustainability, so in roles of sustainability, but not only. You know, we need systemic change to enable women participation in the boardroom, in executive positions, and I'm really pleased to see Vanusia Nogueira elected Executive Director of the International Coffee Organization, but I'm a bit sad to see how surprised everyone finds that, because it's 2022 and it shouldn't be surprising, it should be normal. So just a parenthesis on women inclusion in general in the coffee sector. So I'm a co-author of ITC's Coffee Guide, which is focused on these issues that targets not only exporters and importers, but also producers. Yes, so let's get started with the panel. You've already met our 3 speakers. I'm happy to say that they're leading important change within their communities in their respective countries, Uganda, Honduras, and Nicaragua. They're really leading the way in terms of sustainability, environmental stewardship, social change, but also economic development, which we tend to forget is also part of sustainable growth. It's producers actually making a living income, making a profit, and being able to move from survive to thrive. So my first question to all of you is, in terms of the challenges, let's start with the issues that you have in producer countries, coffee producing countries. What do you perceive as the main challenge for coffee producers today from where you stand? And this can be in general in terms of coffee producers, but also, if you wish, in terms of women and youth in coffee. Maybe we'll start with Lorena.
Perdón, pero la traducción no la tengo a español, solo me sale inglés.
She is saying she only has the translation into English. She must be on the wrong channel.
Un placer estar compartiendo con todos ustedes.
It's a pleasure for me to be here with you and to tell you about the work that we as producers and women are doing in our country of origin, in my case, Honduras. To respond to the question that Sarah is asking, I can point to three main challenges that we have to deal with. One of them is the generational succession, climate change, and migration in our zones. Thank you very much, Lorena.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here with you. I'm very happy to be here because this moves me to be on a panel composed of only women. And to respond to Sarah's question, I could point to the fact, and I will add to what my colleague has said, one of the biggest challenges that we have in Nicaragua, and this is true for surrounding coffee-producing countries, is climate change and monoculture. With climate change is a problem. We know that major industries or producers are not yet aware of the problem. They don't see the soil as our main a resource, and they don't contribute to improvement of the soil. So monoculture is a challenge also because the producers that only do coffee production, they don't see how they can diversify the use of the land, and they don't, and because of that, they don't contribute to food security for families. And this is these are our major challenges, and these are the ones we're working on. Thank you.
Yeah, this is really important. Faima, would you like to share your challenges that you find yourself confronted with?
Thank you very much for the question. I want to take this opportunity to thank the organizers and Sustainable Harvest at large to have us here. From my perspective, I think the generic challenges are known. And just to put you back to Mount Elgod, where we are based, when you look at the average age of the farmers that we are working with is an age that does not secure sustainability of coffee. So we feel that we are having a challenge of few youth participating in the coffee sector. And given that we are near the border, most of the youth prefer to go and look for white-collar jobs or also resort to riding over passenger motorcycles to earn money. So we feel like that is a main challenge, more tailored to the region. Then also, secondly, you find that women are contributing like 95% to the work on the farm, but they are realizing little benefits in terms of income from coffee. So we feel that if women stay demotivated and yet they are doing a lot of work, sustainability in terms of maintaining the gardens, in terms of having good coffee may cease to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. Then also coming from a region that is very prone to natural disasters. You've heard of landslides in Mount Elgon. Recently, I think in August, we had a flood within Bale district, and it took a lot of people's property, people lost lives. And so we find that the change within the weather pattern, heavy rains, has also affected the coffee in terms of pests and diseases. Then also in terms of changing the CAP score, because previously, from experience of people who have capped the Bugisu Arabicas, they are lacking attributes that they used to find back then, and then we are having new components come within our coffee. So mainly, I would stick to measure those challenges, because the rest of the challenges we really do not have control over them, like the political interference within the coffee sector. You've heard of our government coming out with signing a Vinici contract, having a person taking over the monopoly of the coffee, which makes farmers lose their ability to negotiate for better prices. and fair prices for their coffee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faima. And I'll take this off because I can hear my voice. Hearing all your challenges, I must say that it's one thing reading the challenges that producers face in a book or in a report or whether it's academic or generated by the industry, and it's another thing hearing it live from you. And I think it's way more impactful, and this is why it's important to attend these kind of panels to really hear it, from the people. I think it's something that we integrate it a lot better and understand it a lot better when we hear it from the people who are actually experiencing these challenges. So you all mentioned, I think a big one is the generational issue. You mentioned issues linked to women representation. But right now I'd like to focus more on the environmental challenges that you mentioned, to give you a platform to talk about the solutions, what you're doing to improve that. So when we talk of environmental challenges, of course, the effects of climate change, but not only. I don't think we can just blame climate change for everything. There's also the issue of monoculture. Why does monoculture happen? It's an effect of globalization. It's an effect of the coffee industry being quite extractive. And what does monoculture do? It affects our ecosystems. It means poor quality of soil. It means deforestation. These are all big issues. So it's clear that we need to start caring more for our planets and our ecosystems. And I'd really like to hear about what each of you are doing to overcome these challenges. And if it's okay, I'd like to start with you, Myrtel, because I know that you work a lot on regenerative production. So I don't know whether everyone knows what that is. So it would be great if you could explain a bit what that is, what your work on that entails, and how you're helping to overcome these challenges you mentioned earlier.
Thank you very much. In our organization since 2002, we've been working on organic farming, but we also saw the need to reinvent ourselves and to look for other alternatives that would allow us to find solutions for climate change and to protect our main resource, which is the soil. In the face of these needs, we're faced with having to go through ROC certification. ROC is, in fact, a working model for us, a business model for us. It focuses, is a certification process that looks to protect the soil, but also we have three pillars: protect animals, the environment, and to provide social protection. When it comes to protection of the environment, it is focused mainly on soil protection. We focus on regenerative processes that allow for the regeneration of our main resource, the soil. As for the social protection, we have activities that contribute to the social protection of our producers. So we look towards protection of human rights, a right to healthy food, for example. We also have a health component as well as an education component, which is very important in our sector. And as for protecting animals, we work many of our cooperatives are located on natural reserves, and this is, for us, it is important to preserve biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Myrtel. And I think Myrtel makes an important point of basically linking environmental stewardship to better food security, because, when you start diversifying your crops, you can provide better food security, better income. So basically, it's all interlinked. To Lorena, I have a question for you now. I know that training and awareness raising on environmental stewardship is an important part of your job. And can you tell me more about that and what you're doing?
Bien.
Well, I'm going to respond to this very important question. I'm going to talk about the work that I do as a woman, and from our perspective, as you said, specific for women and children, but also for men. With respect to what we do and how we seek to influence our society, climate change is something that we've been talking about for many years now. But we also have to focus on what can we do to improve climate change or to improve the environment in which we live in. We can't just point to the fact that there are problems due to climate change. As a woman and also as part of the organization that I represent, Café Score, we try to identify what we need to do to face these challenges. We know that we have to work on climate change. So from our perspective, and because we are so close to coffee producers, and with our knowledge that we've acquired through training and through certification processes that are used for our products, we help a producer recognize how they need to produce coffee in a way that is friendly to the environment. So what we do, well, Café Score has established means to protect, to reforest the coffee, and we indicate changes that need to be made to production, more healthy, more organic, and also one that protects the environment. So it is by producing this knowledge for producers and giving this knowledge to them, we help with climate change and to protect the environment. We also work on transferring this knowledge to young people and children, because this is our way of protecting the environment in the future. We just can't keep this knowledge for us and for producers. Our major focus is young people. And to that end, every year we plant about 100,000 plants near water sources in our area and near the coffee producing lands. We involve young people, children, women and men in what we do, because this enables us to transmit our knowledge to society in general. We don't want our knowledge to be held internally or only by producers. We want the message to be spread on a broader level and to make us all aware of the fact that we can all live in a world that can be environmentally friendly, and we can live in a better world. This is what we do with our work in coffee production, so that we can continue to produce coffee, to sell coffee, and live from that production.
You say two important points. One is about understanding. I think you can't just ask producers or ask any group of people to implement change without that group of people understanding why they're doing it. So I think this is a really important work that you're leading. This awareness raising is something that we kind of skim on, both financially and in terms of human resources, but it's really important. There's groundwork. People understand, you know, why it's important to do it, what they get out of it, and why it's important for also the next generations to do it. And this idea of skills and knowledge transfer to scale up the efforts in the long term, also super important. Faima, I'd like to hear from you also. I mean, you mentioned climate change effects as one of the major problems for coffee producers earlier. And yeah, what are you doing to address this with your organization?
Thank you very much. I think I want us to all appreciate that coffee is an agroforestry crop, and one of the things that we do is to appreciate that coffee cannot do without intercropping or having trees. So to respond to the question, we have a tree planting project that we are currently implementing with the objective to mitigate on the effect of climate change, but also support communities access trees for shade, for fruit in terms of diversification because they can sell the fruits for income or even improve on their nutrition. Then we also offer communities fodder trees for their animals. Currently, for this year, 2022, we have a target to plant 1,040,000 trees. And these are trees that we manage at our 16 nursery beds because we do the seed sowing, potting, and then distribute to the communities at no cost. We do not sell them. So to ensure the sustainability of these trees, we integrate it with beekeeping for the farmers to kind of keep the trees for the bees. So it's more of a integrated activities to ensure sustainability, because when you look at the shade trees, they are helping farmers improve soil fertility, adding nutrients within the soil, tapping on soil erosion because we are situated on steep hills and so on. Then also the beekeeping, it's also a component that is an agroforestry. It cannot do outside the trees. So to combat all that, we have a tree planting project that is currently running, and we also have a beekeeping for sustainability of the trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Faima. Yeah, bees and coffee are a great pair. And yeah, bees have the pollination factor, so this is great for agroforestry. But you also end up with a product for additional income if you sell the honey on the local market. So again, it's nice to see how it's all interlinked, environmental stewardship with also social and economic development. But what I take away from what all of you are doing in terms of environmental stewardship is you're doing amazing things. But if you've all heard of climate injustice, contribution to climate change is mostly generated by, if you accept that term, developed countries, but the effects of climate change are mostly suffered by the more vulnerable communities in developing countries, also if you accept that term. So this is basically climate injustice, and the onus can't only be on producers to make these changes. And I think it's great that they are making these changes, but I think that buyers and policymakers need to also channel, their financial support and their funding towards these efforts. So I'd like to move on now to the more economic facet of sustainability. So today the whole world is in an economic crisis. We have a fragile socioeconomic situation, we have war, we have inflation, we're recovering from a pandemic, everything has become more expensive. So from what you mentioned earlier, coffee producers have not been spared, things were already difficult, and there's additional strain now being placed on them. So I'd really like to hear from you, what it is that you're doing in terms of increasing profits, improving living income, and basically ensuring that coffee producers can have sustainable livelihoods that also the next generation would be interested in staying in. So Lorena, can you tell me briefly about Café Score, its mission and its work, and specifically on what you're doing in terms of developing the agribusiness skills of your coffee community?
Bien, voy a hablar.
All right, I'm going to talk to you about what Café Score is doing and how we do it. In response to your question, what do we do to improve the economic conditions for our producers, and that in the face of the various challenges that we've had to face, and that we have suffered the most from. We have not been spared. We have been responsible. We do training. We do training with respect to coffee. We have a processing plant for coffee byproducts, for residual water from the coffee, the coffee byproducts such as the outer layer. We do this so that we can improve, or we do have this processing plant to improve environmental conditions, to protect the environment. And through this, our producers learning to survive, if I can use that term. Especially when it comes to facing the prices of products that are required to produce coffee, where we have very high prices. What we are producing, processing of these byproducts are useful to producers, and we try to provide them to producers at low costs. How do we do that? Well, we provide organic fertilizer that is made from coffee byproducts, from the shell of the berries. We want producers to learn how to make these fertilizers, because he has the raw materials to do this, and he can use these byproducts to produce his organic fertilizers and thereby contribute to the health of the soil. We also have the residual water. With this residual water, we separate it into different components. One of them can be used as a fertilizer on foliage, and this contributes to creating a more healthy environment for everyone. And through this, we involve young people and women, because we know it is important to have the entire population knowledgeable in agroforestry, and men here play a key role in empowering women. In the past, women were not involved to this extent, and certainly have this level of power when it came to coffee production, nor did they run coffee producing companies. So we're managing to get a greater representation of women. We have 400 associates, 20% of which are women, and about 10% are young people in our organization. And we also have producers located throughout the country that are Lempira, Opang, and Ocoptepec. In all of these different departments of the country, we undertake awareness-raising activities so that people have this knowledge and so that we can all work together. One of the things that identifies our company and is important to me when I'm working with women, when I'm working with young people, is that we are a team. Being a team is very important, and you can't work with coffee alone. You can't see yourself as one area, one region, or one country. We have to work together. We have to work as a team, because it is through numbers that we will have strength, so that we can make coffee continue to make coffee as marvelous and wonderful it is, and have it shipped out throughout the world.
I think everyone, we're stronger as a collective. And also what you mentioned about reusing waste and commercializing byproducts, these are principles of a circular economy. So I'm really happy to hear that you're doing that, and that you're showing the producers that it can work. Something that we might talk less about at producer level is the importance of finance, financial literacy, access to finance. And I know that FIMA, this is, I know from our chats earlier and from today that this is an important part of your work, this idea of finance sustainability, which is a term that I don't know if everyone knows what it means. So it would be great if you could explain a little bit what you mean by finance sustainability and what work you do on that.
Thank you very much. During the breakout of COVID-19, the pandemic, we saw so many ways of working changing, and also like there were curtails that if you didn't have resources, you would not access some of the services. Considering the communities that we live in, this informed us that our member farmers face a lot of challenges when they are not selling coffee, when they are off season. They are unable to meet their basic needs, and this forces them to sell most of their coffees in green flower form to traders just to get money for them to solve the problems at hand. And to kind of solve that, we have a model of where we created 8 village saving loan association scheme that is there to support members, all women, men, and the youth, to save part of the proceeds they get from selling their coffee to Mount Elgon agroforestry. And so this is a concept that we felt would support farmers meet their off and on-season needs, because they will have access to credit that is at low cost. Maybe sometimes they can also use part of their saving to manage the challenges or the problems that they face at hand. But also to add on that, we saw that most of the women who were unable to go and do maybe a side job like dig for a neighbor to earn a penny from the side job to cater for the self-needs women have, we felt that it's important to empower our mothers, the women within the cooperative, financially. And so we are promoting a brand called the Mount Elgon Mothers Coffee. And this is basically like to improve the financial support that goes to the women, for them to create like an avenue for them to benefit from their hard work. And it's a component that comes along with the policy that we have, the gender equity and social inclusive policy that we have, where we encourage our male farmers to give a few plants, because at Mount Elgon we have a lot of land fragmentation. This is something that is very known. Women have limited access to land, like land ownership. And so we encourage them to own a few trees within the gardens they manage. And so at the end of the season or at the start of the season, they are able to deliver 15 kilos, 20 kilos. And so we offer them the platform to access market for their coffee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Faima. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that including women, because women in finance traditionally quite separate. So I'm happy to hear that it's a really inclusive work that you're doing. I do have a question. It's, you know, all your efforts on gender empowerment and gender inclusiveness, how are they met by the men in your coffee community? Are they positive about this? Is it difficult to change the dynamic? How do you experience it?
I think it's a journey we have to appreciate, because things are not going to happen in an overnight, 2 days, 1 month, 1 year, but it's a journey that we are taking, and we hope at the end of it all, because this is a vision, we shall receive positive feedback. And from our cultural beliefs, women still face a lot of inferiority complex, and we cannot achieve gender without men. So men have to really understand the component that it's not about the roles that women play, like being a mother at home, giving birth, but also the roles that women play in the social and economic development of the family, of the community, and of the nation at large. So it's a process that we are taking, and we believe we shall get positive feedback, because we have to break the cultural norms, the religious norms, a lot of challenges and hurdles, but we believe we shall really reach there.
I mean, yeah, and this was my point, is that, you know, when we talk about gender empowerment or gender inclusiveness, this is not work that's targeted only at women. This is something that, you know, needs to be for society as a whole, not just in producer countries, but also here. You know, it's about understanding as a society that we need to move into that direction, and everyone embracing it and everyone collectively working towards it. Thank you, Faima. So my final question on the topic of economic growth is for Myrtel. So I know, Myrtel, that you're an agronomist by training and that you work a lot on the environmental stewardship. But can you tell me how this work on environmental stewardship contributes to financial stability and new opportunities for the coffee producers in your community?
Thank you. Well, as agronomist and also as a coffee copper in my organization, actually I focus my work on the development of our communities. And during all my job, what I do is I take care of the production and also for improving the quality of our products. I work with 125 women that comes from the brand Hermana, that is the first brand that we have in our country. And I give support and also for the improvement of the quality. So they have a differential in the quality. And that it's what create solutions in a long-term solution, because they will have some more income having this differential in quality. And this has an impact because when they receive this differential, they just turn it over their community, the education of their children, also for building their houses. In the previous cycles, I have 6 women that they create their own benefits because they don't have to offer a service. They have their own benefit in their farm, and that guarantees their sustainability standards that we have, and also in an economic level, because it reduces the production cost. And also regarding the education, we have women that they are supporting their children with their titles and also with their studies, and that increases the generation level. That it's also important for us. And we also have the health factor, because we do know if they're not healthy, they will not work, and we will not support all the coffee production, because they're the base, the grassroots of the development of our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Myrtel. And the coffee, the Las Hermanas coffee, is this is this coffee for export? Can you tell me a little bit more about the Las Hermanas coffee?
Yeah, well, with pleasure. Well, Café de las Hermanas, it's a brand that it's led by 125 women with our cooperatives, the grassroots cooperatives. It's a coffee of an excellent quality, and it's for exports, actually. Thank you.
A good platform to pitch your products to a room of potential buyers. So moving on to the next point. So, we've covered the environmental aspect, we've covered the economic aspect, and now I'd like to talk about the more social dimension of your work. So basically, what is needed to shape a sustainable coffee sector? I mean, a huge part of any transformational change is people. People are at the heart of everything, and you mentioned that youth and women are the ones that have the most challenges in the coffee sector. And obviously, as women, you're acutely aware of these. as young women. Something that you pointed out was the migration of coffee farmers. They're abandoning the coffee sector for more lucrative pursuits, more lucrative sectors, because let's face it, the financial incentives are just not enough. Coffee production is hard work. Coffee is not an easy crop. And if the rewards are not big enough, how can the next generation of coffee producers remain in the sector? And this is a problem for everyone, because then how will coffee demand be met? And coffee demand is set to increase. So how can we tackle these systemic issues sustainably and in the long term is something that I'd like to get your perspective on. So basically, this idea of sustainable inclusion, what is sustainable inclusion to you? If you could briefly each share your idea on that. What is sustainable inclusion? Lorena?
Bien.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and in order to give an answer, I do believe that the public wants to know what we do as people and as an organization as well. So in our regions, in our coffee regions, we have the migration problem, and also it's normally the young people that migrate. And with the work that we have been developing and from the position that I found myself, we try to involve the youth with a strong, so they can look for the passion of the culture and also to work in the fields. So in that case, we ensure that we will have the production of cotton. So we don't focus on youth people, on the youth, and also on the producer. We will lose our focus, our aim to help the society, and that's why we focus on the youth, on the young people. How do we do that? But in our organization, we are trying to constitute the schools for organic agriculture, and there we look for the young empowerment and the woman empowerment. It's an attractive factor for them, so they can have a revenue, an extra revenue during the whole year. We have to remember that coffee, we only do the crops for 3 or 2 months. And what do they do for the rest of the year? How can I have some revenue the rest of the year? So we are doing that in order we can train and we can get them involved in the society, and we can avoid this huge problem that we have, that it's the migration of these people. So in our region, we don't have the workforce also for recollecting and to work on all the activities regarding the harvest. So we do it as the education promotion with our young people, with the children. So in that way, we're ensuring their future, and we present another perspective of our region. And we make them know that not only migrating to another country that they can put forward on their lives. So we showcase our examples that we have been overcoming several challenges. Since from a very young age, we have been in the coffee sector, and we have this contact with the buyers. So it is important for them to know and to see and perceive all this. So we started from zero, that we were cutting the coffee, and now we find ourselves in different positions, and we have been growing so much personally, and we can say that we can show that our lives and our jobs, they are used as an example for the young people, and they can see that there's a possibility. So as an organization, we offer that, and we open our doors for all the young people so they can grow in their life, and we can cancel their vision that only going abroad that they can have a better life, and for them and for their families. We try to make our harvest important, because what we have in our regions, so we don't lose what we have in our lands. So that's what we're trying, but we have always to remember we cannot do this by ourselves. And sometimes with the revenue that we have, and even with our own funds, we would like to do more. But many times we have some obstacles that we have, and many times we need more support. But so we also try to find the support from other organizations or other persons that can consider that it's that these has a value. So I do reaffirm that in 10 years that we will be working in this way, coffee or the coffee harvest will be sustainable at the end. Thank you.
And I think it's important also at this point to remind you where our speakers are from again, just so that you can, picture what country they're talking about every time. So Lorena is from Honduras, Yertel is from Nicaragua, and Faima is from Uganda. Three, very different countries with different challenges, different coffee landscapes, but I think they all produce amazing coffees. And yes, of course, we need to have better financial incentives for youth, but I think what you mentioned, Lorena, about working with the youth and awareness raising, and also this idea of, continuing the legacy of great coffee, taking pride in the product is also really important. Faima, I have a question for you in terms of, how you see sustainable inclusion, but also I know that you lead important work on youth inclusion and gender justice. And if you could briefly tell us a little bit more about specifically what you do on that.
Thank you very much. I'll start by sharing a bit of a personal story. I grew up with limited opportunities to explore the world, and where I'm currently working, it's like kind of my first job, and I didn't know anything about coffee. So it has given me like an exposure, an opportunity to learn. And as a youth who is working with fellow youth, who lives with fellow youth within the community, I feel like availing opportunities to the youth to learn and gain some of hands-on experience, and also put what they know into practice is what we feel makes youth inclusivity more practical and more sustainable. So at Mount Elgon, just to answer what Sarah asked, we have a talent partnership program, and this is funded by our financial root capital, where we bring on board fresh graduates, youth from school, to come and practice on the side of agronomy. So we have a component of agronomic climate resilience advisory services. So we have youth come to practice on our 16 demonstration plots. They learn from the farmers because there is no one with a better knowledge on agronomy than the farmer. Then they also share what they have learned from school. This way, we are sure that in the process of the youth learning, in the process of the youth interacting with the community, they are able to identify what role they need to play within the coffee value chain. So it's not like limiting them, it's giving them an opportunity to make mistakes and learn, to make mistakes and improve. So we feel it's a long-term sustainable project and process to have our youth know more about coffee and also pick interest within the coffee itself. This is not ending at a partnership, but we are also looking at opening up opportunities for internship for students at university to come and practice, and then they go back in school. That way we feel like they will stay within the bracket of coffee. They will still have chance to come and learn and also come back after their school has ended to look for better opportunities. But also this project does not look at just giving youth opportunity to learn, but they also earn a substantial income from the practices. It's not like sustainable, but it gives them an opportunity to meet their independent needs. That's what I can say. Yeah.
Thank you, Faima. I'm aware of the time as well, so we have 5 more minutes to go. I'd still like to hear from Myrtel on what it is that you're doing. And then I have a final question that's a little bit more future-facing before we open up the floor for possible questions from the audience. So Myrtel, I know that you work a lot on trainings, environmental sustainability, quality, productivity. And what I'd like to know is how this contributes to a wider social change. If we consider that basically you're transferring knowledge and skills to a group of people, and if we assume that knowledge is power, how are you contributing to a wider social change?
Thank you very much. I myself am the daughter of small coffee producers. I grew up amongst women and men producers, and this was what inspired me to become an agronomist and to become a coffee cupper. On that basis, I was able to acquire knowledge that helped me for my own personal development, but also to contribute to the development of my community, not just with a cooperative, but to go beyond the outside of the cooperatives, beyond the cooperatives. As a cupper within the organization and someone who works with women, my work contributes because I talk to women, young people, and children and try to transmit to them what I have learned. I've trained women to become basic cuppers. I've trained young people as cuppers. I've helped train them in areas of agriculture. I've also created small groups with children in my community where I contribute to their learning from a very early age. And through that, I promote environmental sustainability, coffee production, social equality, the rights of children, the right to learn, to education, the right to play. This is how I believe that I, as a person, contribute to my community to provide a better future and to allow for generational succession or generational continuation. And I also promote the role of women because, as we know, the role of women is not very visible in the coffee industry. And that's how I contribute to.
The more you know, the more confident you are. The more confident you are, the better you negotiate, the better you market your products, etc. So it's kind of a virtuous circle. Thank you all for sharing on that. And then my final question is really future-facing. So you've all talked about what you're doing in terms of actions, in terms of projects. These are all, let's say, micro level. But if we want really sustainable, transformational change, I think we need to look more at changing mindsets. We need to look more at the foundations of our industry and of our society. And so my question for you is, what are the values that, according to you, will enable a deep, transformation of the coffee industry in terms of becoming more sustainable? If you could tell me a little bit first about the values, and then I'll ask you also about what type of action is needed and what type of leadership. Lorena, would you like to start and share what you consider are the main values? We have to keep it brief because we're coming to the end of the session. Thank you.
Bien, gracias.
Thank you very much. I will be brief. I believe that the primordial values that we have to have is transparency, and two, we need to focus on families, the love of the countryside, the love of growing coffee has to be encouraged at the family level. We have to focus on children so that they can improve the situation, the landscape, the environment.
In terms of the values that you believe will be the foundation for change.
Bueno, gracias.
Thank you. In my opinion, honesty is very important. Responsibility is very important, and loyalty is very important. So if we want to protect our future, we have to start with education. Education at the family level. We have to teach our children and our young people and our producers. We have to educate them because they are the ones who are going to protect the future of coffee, that are guarantee the future of Cuba. And we also have to educate children and young people because they are going to be the next link in coffee production. They're the next link in maintaining our economy and the development of producers.
Share your key values.
Thank you very much. And to add on what my colleagues have said, I think I have two main points that I want to put across. And I feel having environment for all, we need to appreciate that we are the key cause of these environmental changes, climate change that we are talking about. And if we appreciate that to mitigate all this, we need to step up and understand that the environment, to be able to continue in terms of generations to come and meet, we need to take a personal or collective responsibility. So when we carry environment for all as a value for ourselves, I believe it is kind of sustainable. Then secondly, I will say collaboration, because when you collaborate, it's not only giving you an opportunity to understand other partners, but also educate yourself on what you can do in collaboration with others. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've got transparency, honesty, loyalty you mentioned, and I think also generally this idea of education and basically the values starting in the schools and in the homes as well. And then just very quickly to finish, in terms of action and leadership. So in a nutshell, if you could choose what main actions need to happen and who they need to be driven by, in your opinion, for change that is also, long-term and not just on a project timeline. Lorena, if you could share just briefly on action and leadership.
Myself?
Or Faima, anyone.
Okay, so I'll take the lead.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Like, to mention a bit about action, I take two strong key points to stand out for me, and that is creating systems that trace impact. Like, when you have a system in place that tracks how much you have invested in achieving a certain objective, it gives you a reference and a point of where you are able to understand yourself, the system that you've put in place, but also ways of improving the system to work better, to achieve also better results. And secondly is inclusivity, because when we talk of coffee sector, you find that we are not kind of merging the producers, the traders, the logistics, like coming together to have a common voice and also like help each other understand the problems that are in different sectors. So I believe like an action of inclusivity, including everyone within the coffee sector, will really stand out for me. Yes.
Yeah, I agree, and this is something that I plan to end on, is that, again, you know, the onus can't only be on producers or only on the private sector or only on policymakers. It's basically everyone needs to interlink for collective action if anything is really going to work in the long term. Can't just be on one group. Myrtle and Lorena, if you briefly want to share, and then we have just a question from the audience that I'd like to ask you before we finish. Myrtle? On action and leadership, in a nutshell.
Bueno,
As far as activities or actions, we need to be involved. All of us need to be involved with producers. We can't leave this just the onus on one person. We can't leave them on their own. I'm a field technician. I can't see myself as the only person in charge of this. I have to make sure that I promote that everyone is involved in developing the coffee chain.
To share your perspective?
Bien,
I'm going to bring to the fore two aspects. One is empowerment and the other is resilience. The resilience that is needed to deal with these challenges that are important for the future. We have women, men, and young people who are empowered, and we have knowledge of what is required for resilience. We will be able to continue to survive in this world. And one person cannot change cannot hinge on one person. Isn't me, Lorena, working from Cafe Score that will be able to do all of these things that are needed throughout the world? We need the support of everyone. And when all actors involved in coffee pathways, in coffee production, in the coffee chain to be involved, producers, everyone who's familiar with this world needs to be involved.
And coming from a development organization, resilience is a big buzzword. We need to increase resilience, increase resilience. Yes, we need to increase resilience, but I think, and I'm also turning to the audience, we all need to think long and hard about how we can minimize the challenges in the first place, rather than focus all our efforts on building resilience of producers. Before I ask you the final question from the audience, just like to wrap up by saying that there's no greater advocate for change than someone who's confronted to challenges themselves and wants to make a difference. And I see this in each one of you, and I really want to congratulate you on the work that you're leading, and on your commitment and on your drive and your energy. Thank you. So the question is, great panel, what message would you have for the industry as regenerative agriculture becomes a bigger focus to incorporate insights from the producer perspective and ensure that this truly supports regeneration and longevity of coffee production as the term becomes more prevalent and invested in? Okay, this is quite a wordy question. I think basically the idea is, yes, regenerative agriculture is quite trending at the moment. In your opinion, is it worth the hype? Does it truly contribute to a more sustainable coffee production? I think I might ask Lorena and Faima, because Myrtle, you gave quite a good explanation of this earlier on. Lorena, do you have anything to say on this question?
bien,
Well, to respond to the public's question, I mentioned something that we do that is important. We promote organic agriculture and involve young people in that. So that's the beginning of this work. But this work cannot be done by us alone. We need support from others. We need involvement from everyone who can contribute to this work. If we do reforestation campaigns to protect flora and fauna and the ecosystems that we have in surrounding coffee production lands, that's very good, but we need more people involved. We need to do more, and we need that so that this work isn't just left by the wayside, or we only do half of it, or we work and then that work is lost. We need everyone involved. As organizations, as a country, we already have identified the critical points and we've already come up with solutions. But in order to bring about those solutions, we need everyone's contributions. And this is what we're doing. We're on the front line, providing our knowledge, providing our strength, explaining what we want to do, what we need to do to support our communities. What I do underscore all of the time is that we need to work together. We need to work together as a team.
Panel short because we're really tight on time, but just as a last point is on regenerative agriculture, it's something that's not a quick win. And I think that one of the values one of you mentioned earlier was perseverance. And I think that this is really important when we're talking about sustainable change, is that you need to be patient and you need to persevere, because it's definitely not a quick win. But it's something that might have more long-term rewards, but that they will also last longer. So thank you all for joining, and thank you to the audience for listening. Yeah, it's been a great session. Thank you.